Hey guys, welcome back to LS Vintage Design. How's everyone doing? I hope your day is amazing. Today we are going to talk about vintage florals. What do I mean by vintage florals? Well, there are a lot of vintage floral options out there. So we're going to talk about several, and I might have touched on this briefly in other videos, but I am going to go full on vintage florals today and give you ideas how to use multiple things. And of course we're going to start in the kitchen because vintage floral glasses, dishes, decanters, those are all beautiful items that would set off any sets you already have. Let's say you have a plain white, clean, modern set. You could find vintage florals in plates, cups, salad plates, kind of to mix and match. And some of the options out there is something like this or this. Now, maybe florals aren't your vibe, but that's kind of what this video is about. But if it's not your vibe, don't worry. On Friday, we're going to be talking about vintage dog collections. You know, any type of vintage dog tchotchke, knick-knack, anything I can find about vintage dogs, we are going to discuss on Friday. So if this isn't your cup of tea, I get it. Just go ahead and hit that subscribe button with that little bell so when the dog video pops up, you'll know. Dogs aren't your vibe? That's okay, because on Monday, we're going to talk vintage cats. I have something for everybody. But now we are going to jump into all the vintage floral options that maybe you can find in your area. And we're going to start off super simple and with a good set, a heavy set. This is not china, this is pottery. And guys, this is a heavy set. Now these are vintage. They have lost their plugs. Get them on Amazon, Walmart, wherever you want to. These hold a lot of product, a lot of salt, a lot of pepper, whatever your seasoning of choice. You could even put something like garlic powder, onion powder, Tony's saturates, any product like that that sprinkles out, you could put in these. These would be great to set by a stove because they will withstand everyday use. And it's a great way just to get a little kiss of floral vintage into your home. Now, if you didn't see the vintage, these are a vintage blue bonnets and some other type of flower. Now, I love flowers, but my flower knowledge, especially vintage hand-painted flower knowledge, is not as high as it probably should be. I apologize, but this is a great little something. Somebody's going to notice it, they're going to pick it up, and these things are heavy. These will be going in my Etsy shop in a day or two. You know, it takes me a while to get things listed, sorry. Now the next vintage item is this 2-tier tray. And guys, how beautiful is this? This has that Bridgerton feel. If you want to host tea parties this summer with friends, you could put your little toast on here. You could put canapes, cookie, you know, the bite-sized cookies, whatever you want. This is gorgeous. Very elegant. You could, look at that. Look at the detail on the stem of this. It's just gorgeous. Again, this is vintage and it's a beautiful floral. If you were planning on entertaining this summer, spring, summer, and you want something to say, hey, my table is way different than your table, add something vintage and add something vintage floral. Now, like our salt and pepper shakers, this is a pitcher, and this sucker is heavy. It is not moldy inside, guys. It doesn't come off. That's just the paint, the glaze inside. See, there's nothing on my fingers, and see, there's nothing under my nails on my fingers, okay? So it's not moldy. It's just the glaze inside, and it's aged. But how beautiful is this? Again, this is heavy, but if you wanted to decorate your table with something substantial, this picture is beautiful. And its coloring kind of matches those salt and pepper shakers, though because of the heft and the size of this is going in my booth. The salt and pepper shakers will be online. I know. I just feel better doing it that way because I think it just will work better. But look at these flowers. These are like tulips. And I just love the colors. I love the paint job. And again, I love the heftiness of this. And you know that white pitcher, I weighed it and it was like 5 pounds. I'd say this one's probably 4 or 5 too. So this is a big girl. But she is beautiful, and she would look amazing on a centerpiece for a table or an island. And she would stand up to a very busy household. Now maybe you want something a little more delicate, a little less kind of old world feel. This is a very delicate, I'm gonna read it to you, Covington stoneware edition, and it's the floral. It's made in Japan, and this is gorgeous. The colors are neutral. It's got a little peachy on there, but not a lot, and it is a beautiful piece. There are no chips. It has the florals on the handle and inside and on both sides. This is a great piece. Again, if you're entertaining, even though these aren't the same brands, because of the coloring of the flowers, you could make like a little quiche or a hot maybe artichoke dip in this and serve it next to this, because their coloring does complement each other. So look for florals that maybe they aren't in the same set, but they definitely complement each other in their display abilities. Now this isn't a floral, but oh, I love a good fruit during the summer. Their peak sweetness, juiciness, they're just beautiful. And what better way to celebrate summer than a vintage fruit tray? Again, guys, these are all heavy items. This also will be going in my booth just because it is heavy. It does have a micro little chip on it, which I will note, but it will be priced accordingly for a microchip. So, but this would look amazing on a summer table, a summer patio, you know, anywhere that you're hosting. Don't overlook your vintage fruit either, because they're like florals. Most of them come from flowers. Okay guys, sorry, I had to go change batteries. Okay, so you get the idea for the kitchen. You can also find teacups like this. This is one of my favorite teacups right here. And you can find these dishes. We've all seen them. Florals are coming back. If you start seeing desert rose dishes in your local antique stores, grab them. Now, maybe in your face fruit or... So where else can you mix florals into your home? Vintage florals. Everywhere. Now these next ideas are very unique. You can get vintage floral sheets, something like this, and have them made into a custom comforter or bedspread for your bed, custom curtains. You can also find vintage curtains that you can use in your home, florals, something like this, but you might have to do some repairs on them. You know, seams ripped, that sort of thing. You can also take vintage doilies, vintage floral handkerchiefs, and turn into pillows. You can again decorate windows with those, make placemats or tea towels. All great uses for vintage hankies. Also, just tying a vintage scarf with a floral pattern onto your purse is amazing and elevates your style without anybody even realizing what you're doing. You're gonna have the, oh my gosh, she looks amazing, what is it kind of vibe. The last place you can find florals or fruits is in mirrors. Now, this mirror is my own. I own it. It's going into my booth. This thing is heavy and it does need a little bit of repair. So this large mirror, which is almost as tall as me, so I would say this mirror is about 4 foot by probably 2 foot. It's a big mirror. Will be affordably priced. This will be in the booth. So you can look for vintage florals, vintage fruits in multiple things. You can also find your vintage florals in vases, like this beautiful little vintage yellow vase. It's got that gold trim around the top. It's a very delicate vase. We've had some heavy stuff, but this one is just very delicate, very beautiful. So you can find vintage in vases, on vases. You can also find vintage candy dishes that kind of give you the feel of a flower, like a ruffled candy dish or a ruffled vase. The ruffled definitely gives you the feeling of petals. For your walls, you can find vintage embroidery, vintage painted florals, vintage painted still lifes, gorgeous, and adds such a deep richness to anybody's room that you hang these vintage paintings or vintage embroidery in. You can also find a metallic or a metal floral, and this is a set of 3. This is on Etsy, but it's butterflies with florals. This is another way they hang. Again, they're a set of 3 on the wall. Look beautiful. These are mid-century modern. So don't just keep in your mind that florals are on glass or paintings. They're on textiles, they're in metals, you know. So look everywhere for your florals. And the last place to look for florals are on your vintage seat cushions. This is the cushion that is on my chair, and this is such a gorgeous pattern. So finding florals, vintage florals, it's not hard. You just know how to look and kind of maybe what to look for. But I challenge you, do you have any vintage florals in your home? Can you find some? Even if it's a candy dish or a vase that mimics a flower petal? Let me know down below in the comments. I think this is my favorite floral. It is a vintage 1970s coffee pot. This would be great for a large crowd. It has the workings inside, the cord, everything, and it works. How beautiful is this? It's so clean. Look at that. So florals can be fun. They can be black and white. They can be neutrals. They can be whatever you want them to be. Okay guys, that's all I have for you today. Remember, if florals weren't your thing, that's okay. Come back on Friday. We're going to talk vintage dogs. And if dogs aren't your thing, come back on Monday because we will be talking vintage cats. Collectibles are everything to do with dogs and cats. Take care. If you haven't yet, go check out my Facebook page and my Instagram. They're both linked down below. And follow me over there. The Facebook page gets a lot of what is going into the booth and when. And it also gets sneak little peeks, as does Instagram. Take care. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.